Welcome back once again to your infotainment YouTube channel, CNW 24/7. Now, this segment is mainly highlighting the second unit titled Heights of Harmony. Previously, we discussed the first unit called Flights of Freedom. And now, in this segment, we are highlighting the second unit called Heights of Harmony. Now, let us understand the literary device used in the title Heights of Harmony. Heights of Harmony, H, harmony, H. So here, there is a literary device called alliteration. 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 Alliteration is the repetition of the same consonant sound in the following words. So, heights, H, harmony, H, which is an instance of or an example of alliteration. So, let us once again look back into the title of the first unit, Flights of Harmony. Flights of freedom. Flights of freedom. Heights of harmony, then flights of freedom. Here is also the repetition of the same consonant sound. F. So, even in the title of the units also is included with or is consisted of with a literary device called alliteration. Now, we go to analyze what does the title Heights of Harmony mean. Heights of Harmony mean. The unit begins with a quotation by Julia Abigail Fletcher Carney. So the unit begins with the words of American poet, author, editor, who is better known for her famous poem called Little Things. So let us see what does she say about little words of kindness, little words of love. Once again, listen the quotation. Little deeds of kindness, little words of love make our earth an Eden like the heaven above. That is a very important one. Little deeds of kindness, little words of love make our earth an Eden like the heaven above. Like the heaven above. Heaven above. So while we analyze the meaning of this quotation, we can understand what does harmony mean. So Julia Abigail Fletcher Carney is saying that little deeds of kindness. We must be kind to other people. A little is enough. A little is enough. And a little words of love we must be a little bit loveful to others. And these two qualities, kindness and love, that make our earth, the earth we live in, just like the Garden of Eden, just like the Garden of Eden, Garden of Eden. And that is similar to the heaven above. That is similar to the heaven above. So the unit begins with the words of American poet, author and editor, who is better known for her poem called Little Things, is giving a wonderful quotation regarding what's harmony. So let us think about the world now we live in. Are all the people living in harmony? Are all the people equal? So it is very difficult that it's not possible. And let us once again think, if we want to arrive at the heights of harmony, we should have a little deeds of kindness, not all the deeds of kindness, at least a little deeds in your lifespan. That kindness and little words of love. You need not to give 100% words of love. Little words of love that can make our earth an Eden. Eden is the Garden of Eden. So, just like the heaven above. So, why don't we just go deep into the unit? We can see that there are certain qualities and principles essential to maintain the social fabric of human relations. And also, there is a comparison, just like the grains of sand on the seashore, we must learn to coexist with other people. That shows a kind of a harmonious atmosphere for the better living of the whole humanity all over the world. Once again, please listen. There are certain qualities and principles should be maintained or are essential to maintain the social fabric of human relations. And those relations should be like the grains of sand on the seashore. We the human beings. That is an example the writer is showing. The grains of sand on the seashore, they actually live it together harmoniously without any kind of restrictions, borders or boundaries. They live it together. We the human beings must learn to coexist with other human beings in the world. That is another important thing if we wanted to reach the heights of harmony. Then let us begin section of this unit is starting with the words of Albert Einstein. You might know the famous scientist Albert Einstein. Let us see, what does Albert Einstein say about heights of harmony? So here his words are starting with compassionate people. Compassionate people are genius in the art of living, more necessary to dignity, security, and the joy of humans or humanity, joy of humanity, than the discovery of knowledge. Than the discovery of knowledge. That is a very important. Whatever inventions or whatever the discoveries the human beings is highlighting about propagating his genius, But he is only telling that compassionate people are genius. Not the highly erudite and educated people. He is talking about compassionate people are genius in the art of living, more necessary to security, dignity, and the joy of humanity, rather than the discovery of knowledge. Then he again highlights that large parts of the world are faced with starvation, while others are living in abundance, pomposity, extravagance, luxury. That is a very pathetic condition while we are discussing the concept of harmony. So, does the world we represent, or does the world we live in really in harmony? That is what the words of Albert Einstein is very important in this section. Compassionate people are genius in the art of living, more necessary to dignity, security, and joy of humanity than the discovery of knowledge. Finally, he highlights that larger parts of the world are faced with the starvation. Starvation means hungry, while only a minority of the people live in abundance. So he continues his speech. Finally, he concludes his saying, our task must be, that is a very important one, each and every human being's task must be to free ourselves from this prison. To free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion. By widening our circle of compassion to embrace all the living creatures and the beauty, the nature in its beauty. That is a very important thing. So in order to attain the height of harmony, in order to achieve the aim of harmony, or in order to attain the idea of harmony, he is asking all the human beings' task must be to liberate themselves from this prison. Which prison? The large parts of the world are faced with the starvation while a minority lives in abundance. So that prison, that imbalance, that barrier and boundary should be tackled off. There should be an equality among all the people all over the world. So, finally, Albert Einstein is saying that our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion. So, we must widen our circle of kindness and compassion to emprise. Emprise means to include all the categories of people, irrespective of caste, color, creed, economic status, and embrace all the living creatures and the nature in its beauty. Not a deformed nature, but the full nature in its beauty. So that is a very important words told by Albert Einstein regarding the first concept that is revealed in the second unit, heights of harmony. Then everybody can live in harmony. So then we are going to analyze a very good poem, Mending Wall by Robert Lee Frost. Mending Wall. By Robert Lee Frost. It's an American poet. Actually, he is not a nature poet. critics say that Robert Lee Frost is a country poet rather than being a nature poet. Not a nature poet, not a nature poet, but a country poet. A country poet. So, even though he is a country poet, he uses natural scenes in order to depict his ideas of the poem. So, he uses natural scenes. Natural scenes. So, Robert Lee Frost, Melting Wall, is a very famous poem. Try to understand that he is not a nature poet, but a country poet, but using natural scenes in order to depict his ideas of the poem. That is what here we have. So, the title Melting Wall means repairing the wall. Mending means repairing the wall. And before the commencement of the poem, really, we have to understand some idea that fraternity and tolerance, fraternity and tolerance, twin virtues. They are twin, double. Twin means double virtues. So fraternity and tolerance are twin virtues for harmonious living. For harmonious living. For harmonious, the harmony again, harmonious living. So, the poem begins with yet another great idea that fraternity, the concept of fraternity and the quality of tolerance. So, these are the twin virtues in order to maintain harmonious living in the world. But let us see how far we fraternal, how far we tolerant. So now each and every learners, otherwise listeners or the scholars should reflect in your mind how much are we fraternal and how much we are tolerant. So, we must deal the poem or go deep into the poem with these two virtues, the twin virtues, that is what we call it as fraternity and tolerance. So, if we keep these two virtues in our mind and analyze deeply the content of the poem, that is internal content, not the peripheral content, the internal content of the poem, it will be more intelligible and understandable for your things. Now, let us go to the poem. Actually, the poem Melting Wall was published in 1914 as a first entry in the second category of poem, that is called North of Boston. North of Boston. North of Boston. So Melting Wall is just entered into, so published in 1914, and as the first entry in Frost second book of poems. Frost's second book of poems, that is called North of Boston. Now, the poem is setting, or the background of the poem is a rural New England, where Frost lived, and he took the importance of the poem from the rhythms and rituals, rhythms and rituals of the rural New England. So actually, I told you the poem is published in 1940 as the first entry in the second book of Robert Frost called North of Boston, and it was set in the rural New England, and the poem's impetus is taken from the rhythms and rituals of this rural New England. The poem is mainly talking about the speaker means the poet, and his friend, a French Canadian named his neighbor, the poet's neighbor called or named a French Canadian called Napoleon Guy. They meet together and they fix a day in order to mend the wall, which is a ritual in every spring. So, mending the wall or repairing the wall is really a ritualistic deed which is repeated every spring. So that is why I am just telling that the poem has taken its impetus from the rhythms and rituals of the rural New England. So, the poem has taken its impetus from the rhythms and rituals of rural New England, mending the wall or repairing the wall repeatedly every spring is a ritual. So, these are the certain things that you must try to keep in your mind while understanding the poem Mending Wall by Robert Lee Frost. That is the first segment in the unit titled Heights of Harmony. So I start with the first 4 lines of the poem. Let us see what is it talking about. Something there is that doesn't love a wall. The poem begins with a simple line. Something there is that doesn't love a wall. Let us listen to that one. Something there is. Something there is that doesn't love a wall. That doesn't love a war. That doesn't love a war. And sense a frozen ground a frozen ground, swell under it. Swell under it. Swell under it. So listen to the first two lines. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, and since a frozen ground swell under it, and spills upper boulders, and spills the upper boulders. The upper boulders, in the sun. In the sun. Upper boulders in the sun, and makes gaps, even two can pass abreast. Even two can pass abreast. Very important. So the first four lines of the poem Mending by Robert Frost, or Robert Lee Frost, is that something there is that doesn't allow a wall, and since a frozen ground swell under it, and spills the upper boulders in the sun, and it makes the gaps even two can pass abreast. Something there is that doesn't allow a wall. So in the first line itself there is something mysterious. Even the poet doesn't say, what is that something that doesn't love a wall? What is that something that doesn't love a wall? So here the learners, or the listeners, or the readers will have it to make out by themselves, to understand by themselves, what is that something? What is that something that doesn't love a wall? That is something mysterious is given over there. And since a frozen ground swell under it. So finally what happens as a result? Tremor is happening. As earth is shaken. Earthquake happens over there. So there as a result that spills the upper boulders, the upper stones kept on the wall, they are completely shivered, and it makes gaps. Stones are falling from the fence, or actually from the wall, and gaps are made. There are gaps. If rocks or boulders are fallen from the fence, there are gaps made, and even two persons can be passed side by side without any infringement, without any barricade, without any kind of obstruction. They can pass through the gaps made by the nature itself. So that is what here, the first one. First four lines of the poem, something there is that doesn't love a wall, that sends a frozen ground, swell under it, and spills the upper boulders in the sun. That makes gaps, even two can pass. Two people can pass side by side without any kind of obstruction, disturbance. So gaps are made very wide by nature itself. That is one. So the point is telling that there is something, but he doesn't very clearly tell us directly what is that something that doesn't love a wall. Now let us analyze what are the literary devices used in these four lines. So something there is that doesn't love a wall. A punctuation mark, a comma is used. So despite using punctuations, the first three lines are just running into multiple lines expressing a single idea, and the reader only understands a hardened stop at the end of the fourth line. Actually, this is the technique we call the enchantment. 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 So, despite the use of punctuations, one idea is expressed through multiple lines and 1, 2, 3, 3 lines, and the reader only experiences the hardened stop at the end of the fourth line. So it is arguably enchanted. The first 3 lines of the poem. The first 3 lines of the poem is arguably enchanted, expressing one idea following from the first till the fourth one with the hardened stop, thus giving an affiliation to the previous poets like Wordsworth, he is a nature poet, and John Milton. So they have used this kind of enchantment technique, allowing more lines or one idea just cross over multiple lines, cascade over multiple lines, and expressing one line. So that technique is called enchantment. The first 4 lines of the poem is a very good example of enchantment used by Robert Lee Frost, just giving an affiliation to the previous poets like William Wordsworth and John Milton. They have used such a technique, letting or allowing more lines to cascade over to one idea is cascade over to multiple lines and expressing these ideas. And also they have used a dignified literary form. Dignified literary form. That is blank verse. The dignified literary form that is written, the Mending part, and the previous points like John Milton and William Wordsworth, the two, used that dignified literary form for composing their poems, that is blank verse. Then, before introducing heights of harmony, alliteration I told you, then we can see that assonance. So assonance is the repetition of the same vowel sound. So listen here, alliteration is actually the repetition of the same consonant sound. For example, in the heights of harmony, H and H, that is a consonant sound repeated. Then in the flights of freedom, F and F, they are the repetition of the same consonant sound. That is the technique called alliteration. Now, in the first 4 lines of the poem Mending Word, we can yet to see another literary device called assonance. So look at the word I. Look at the word spills. Look at the word something. So in all these words we can see the repetition of the vowel sound I. Something I. It I. Spills I. So in and is also is there I. So repetition of the same vowel sound I in something, I in is, and I in it, I in spills. All these are the examples of assonance, repetition of the same vowel sound. So in the first 4 lines we can see the technical device used by the poet, or the literary device, or the rhetorical device used by the poet is assonance and enchantment. So giving affiliation to the previous poets like William Wordsworth and Milton. So these are the 4 lines, and in the coming episode we will come with more and more ruminations and reflections of the rest of the poem, and important questions, technical devices, and critical analysis and important questions. Thank you very much. And if you want to get more notifications, please subscribe and press the nearby bell icon. Thank you very much.